have to ask questions from two ends of the same question. First of all, short-term versus long-term. Every one of us here face that question. You talk about investment. Wonderful. But where's the money? Short-term. What about the future? How do we know that? We love the directions you three gentlemen pointed to all of us in the Asia Pacific, but we cannot guarantee the certainty of the future you described. So, what about short-term, long-term? Let's go with this way, yeah? What about for a president of a country in the Asia Pacific? Short-term, long-term?
Well, I will be specific to the Philippine experience. Short-term issues are very simple. It is actually, at this point, it is survival for many of our people, simply because prices of fuel, prices of food has risen up to such an extent that they simply cannot afford to survive without assistance from the government. And hence, we are still presently in the Philippines providing just direct cash transfer payments. This is not something that we prefer to do. I don't think that anyone is particularly enamored with direct cash transfer payments, but it is the only way that we can mitigate the situation that our people have. So that is something that we are hoping with the creation of jobs and with the growth of the economy to slowly begin to dial down. And it is with the pandemic beginning to ease, at least in our case, then there's a great deal of hope that emergency situation will slowly resolve itself into some kind of normalcy. In the long term, there really are, I agree with Mr. Moritz, the changes that need to be made are structural. They have to be done structurally because this is a different world, this is a different economy. And as we were discussing in the green room, he says, we're not playing catch up. And I said, even if you were, what are we trying to catch up to? 2019? I don't think that that's the plan. And so we have to be, we cannot be too married to the ideas that we were holding as truths before. And we have to be willing to make big changes, but with recognition that from what is actually happening around the world. But when we make these structural changes, I'd like to pick up on the point that Dr. Schwab made is innovation. We must allow still innovation we must still continue to encourage innovation and to recognize innovations that can actually help and immediately put them into play, or put that if it's a product to market or if it's a system to implement that system. So the agility that Mr. Moritz is saying, I think, is the key to the future in the long term for not only the ASEAN, Asia Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region, but for the whole world.
Thank you, Mr. President. Second question. What kind of state of the world are we in, and therefore the Asia Pacific region? Is it being defined as, I could use in many different languages to describe the same thing or similar things, but in English it will be rivalry, competition, or cooperation, which we have seen in trade mechanisms, at least in the Asia Pacific region for decades. Maybe we start with Mr. President on that.
As I described, I think one of the great advantages that that APEC and the countries in the Indo-Pacific, Asia-Pacific region have been able to manage is that very difficult balance between cooperation and competition. And yet we seem to, for the most part, I would say we have done it. And that is what has driven the growth of the region, is that we are able to compete with one another. But when we find opportunities where partnerships will give the better result, we are all perfectly willing to enter into those partnerships as well. So that, I think, is going to be key. We have done it before. It is the nature of APEC. If we continue to do that and strengthen that, I think it will be to the great benefit of all countries.
Thank you. We only have 30 seconds left. Maybe we have 1 more minute for our speakers. just very briefly, you all talk about building trust. It's not easy. Building trust or rebuilding trust. We know how difficult it is, especially over the past few years. We might not be able to see to each other in person. And we can see each other's shoes also, not just here through Zoom, right? So on that point, how that we can efficiently rebuild trust? Mr. President, please.
In the political context, the way to earn trust is to perform. And the best politics, I always say, the best politics is performance, because it's something that cannot be taken away from you, and it is something that actually makes a difference in people's lives.
Walk the talk, perform.
Perform, and you will get the trust back of the people, and that is what we all politicians, and I'm sure even people from the business side, that's what we strive for.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I think today we have a wonderful scene-setting panel. Not only deliverables for the short term, but also philosophical thinking into the future. Once again, warm applause to these speakers. Mr. President, Mr. Professor, and Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you so much.